Just a little shy.
That's okay.
Hey folks, Josh here. You may know me as the steward at Rugged Ridge Forest, where we create wood-fired, organic, pure Vermont maple syrup. You can feel free to try some for yourself at ruggedridgeforest.com. In the process of making our wood-fired maple syrup, we integrate as much traditional horsepower as we can. The process of assembling our team of percheron standardbred crosses brought us to Ohio, where we attended two Amish auctions, one in October of 2020 and the second in June of 2021. In October, we purchased Hildy here from an Amish guy named Andy Raber. Andy and I struck up a rapport when he was introducing me to the horse. We both do a fair bit of logging and carpentry on the side and have a passion for horses. When I made the winning bid on Hildy, he was really glad that she was going to a home where she would be appreciated and not being bought just to be sold on. Andy gave me his business card, and it sat in my wallet until we returned to Ohio in June of 2021. I went to the auction where we saw several hundred horses go across the auction block, but the prices of horses had skyrocketed, and finding Hildy a suitable teammate in my budget wound up being impossible. This auction was held at the peak of the price hike in lumber and steel during the COVID-19 outbreak, and the price for horses was following the same trajectory as those other two commodities. Horses like Hildy were selling for 1.5 to 5 times what I had paid for Hildy, and I had showed up to the auction hoping to match her with a greener horse and hopefully not spend so much money. Before the auction, Andy invited me to his farm and gave us a tour. He showed us what horses he had in stock, and there was this 2-year-old of the same breeding as Hildy. But a 2-year-old was way too green a horse for me, so I thought, and Andy said if we struck out at the auction to give him a call, he would take us driving around to different Amish farms, seeing if we couldn't find the right horse. After striking out at the auction, we took Andy up on the offer. We met him at a tiny little Amish auction of an elderly couple selling off their extra possessions. It was a pretty cool event to show up to, especially as the only non-Amish, or English, as they say, folks there. Everyone was gracious and welcoming. We loaded up Andy into our truck and then we headed out. We stopped at 4 farms looking for draft crosses, but we only found 2 horses that fit the bill. One of them was a little bit weak in the rear end and a little bit deformed. He kind of ran sideways with his rear in a different plane than his front. We obviously weren't interested in him. The second horse was beautiful and would have matched Hildy perfectly, but they wanted big money for her, exactly what she was worth. Dejected at having struck out again, I asked Andy what he wanted for the 2-year-old. Andy put a fair price on him, and then it became a matter of whether or not I thought that I could break the horse. Now this horse was pretty much feral, roaming around on Andy's farm, where he had been born and had never been haltered. I asked Andy if we could halter him and see how he handled. I told him no promises, but if he seemed like a chill enough horse, I'd take him. Andy proceeded to put on a beautiful display in natural horsemanship. Andy is a pretty interesting dude. He was 28 years old when this video was produced. He's happily married with 4 kids. He's primarily a logger, but he and his crew fix up houses for resale when it's wet out, and he sells horses as a passion. He's a very hard worker, intelligent, and industrious. He had just bought the 50 acres that his home and his horse farm is on a couple of years before, and then he built the barn and the house this past year. He doesn't have electricity or drive a car, though he does hire a driver to drive him to the jobs and a trucker to move equipment and horses. He logs with a bulldozer. His church won't allow them to use pneumatic tires, so he can't use a skidder. During the day we spent riding around together, we asked him about a few of the classic Amish stereotypes. If someone wants to leave the church, are they really exiled from their families? Andy said absolutely not. They can stay in touch and continue to visit with their family. They just aren't allowed to attend church anymore. Oftentimes, people who leave the church still wear the clothes and grow a beard, but just occupy their own existence between the Amish and the English worlds. We also learned about the different sects of Amish and their different rules. Some sects can use pneumatic tires, but not internal combustion engines. Some can have their hay baled by a tractor, but for others the hail has to be brought in from cutting and harvested in the field by horses, and only then can it be pitchforked in front of the baler at the barn. There's no one single set of rules that all Amish live by. Each church makes compromises that fit their community. Some Amish have cell phones, but not smartphones. Some Amish have smartphones. And he keeps his cell phone in his driver's car and only returns calls on his way to or from work. In order to separate our gelding, first we rounded up all the horses into the barn. The big team of Belgians were Andy's anchor team. He had trained them as colts and fillies when he was a teenager, and he used those horses to break his other horses too, knowing that with the size difference alone, the smaller horses would be unable to do much other than what Andy had asked the big Belgians to do.
You gonna stand right on the inside? I'll chase some of them out.
Once the herd was loaded into the barn, Andy let all the other horses out, except for the young gelding we were looking at. He then proceeded to round pen the young gelding until it had achieved a calm and submissive state. He's putting ears on us. He wants to be a good boy. After only about 5 minutes of round penning, the gelding was ready to stop on a whoa, and at that point Andy put on a real display of some very calm and very patient horsemanship, and it was quite a sight to behold. Notice how he uses his eyes and his body language to dictate the path of the horse. Then when he finally does make contact, he's very slow, deliberate, and gentle to show the horse that he means no harm. Remember that this horse has never worn a halter before and has never even been separated from its herd. This is the part that I honestly couldn't believe. You could have heard a pin drop in that barn.
I should have a long lead, and I didn't bring one.
Want me to go tear that one off the wall?
Yeah. Been on there for a while.
No, you're not. But I'll get it. Andy, that was amazing. Now, it might seem like Andy's being a little bit rough, but it's important to remember that that horse is 7 or 8 times the size of Andy, and it has never been on a lead
Do you want me to go
before.
find you a long
So
one?
he has to kind of communicate with it in its own language. And being that this horse was in a herd, he actually has learned a lot about giving to pressure and about moving and respecting personal space, because all those horses are always bumping into each other, nipping at each other, pushing each other around. And we're kind of speaking that language to the horses when we train them. And that's what Andy's doing here is he's applying pressure in different directions. And when the horse gives to pressure, he releases. And pretty soon the horse realizes, oh, the pressure around my head is what is controlling me. And if I give to that pressure, then it's going to be easier for me. And this horse picks it up so quickly and so smoothly that to this day, I don't believe it. But it has, and he's continued to be a great horse.
Boy. Well, that'll get him. He did really good.
You did pretty good too.
Yeah.
Wow.
To get the halter on, I have worked a lot longer. I like to get them. Before I launch them, I get them where they're not scared of me.
Now we wound up needing to get a longer rope and putting it through the rungs of the trailer and negotiating the horse a little bit more gingerly into the trailer than we could get on the video. Obviously I had to put down the camera and actually be of some service at this point. But the horse did extremely well. We got him loaded, and the rest is history. We brought him home, and he's really turned into a great little gelding.
That door looks like it's a little bit. It should be fine.
Now, it was a 16-hour ride home, and the whole way this gelding refused food and water, so he was obviously really stressed out about the trip. But as soon as we got him back, we introduced him to his new herd and made sure he got some water. And he obviously looks noticeably skinnier when he arrived, but since then we've really focused on his nutrition, and he's really taken to his new herd.
Good boy. Okay. Walk on.
We decided to name him Hugo, and it didn't take Hugo very long at all to discover electricity and also the personal space of his herd mates. But looking back, I
Yep.
think that Hugo must have known Hildy back at
Hey,
Andy's farm,
hey.
being that Hugo was born there and
Yeah.
lived there for the last 2 years, and I bought Hildy from Andy in October. And so I think it didn't take long for them to recognize each other and actually share a fast rapport, and it was really quite sweet. See, it's okay. Fritz is too. Fritz is grooming him.
Yeah, I can tell you're stressed.
Saying it's okay. You're
He's
home.
just a little kid.
You're okay. You're home now. Good boy. Good boy, Hugo. Hey, big kid.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to the farm.
You want some flies?
What a good boy. What a good boy. Getting along with Hildy? We've had Hugo for about 4 months now, and he's been coming along wonderfully. He's smart, chill, learning quickly, and I'm really glad that we made the choice to grab him. If you've enjoyed our videos, head on over to ruggedridgeforest.com and grab some of our wood-fired organic maple syrup. We're farmers first and content creators second, and we'd really appreciate the support so we can keep on doing what we're doing. Have a great day. Thank you.